Disappear for 30 days. Watch how your mind becomes unstoppable. Most people are afraid of silence. They fill every second with noise, notifications, opinions, other people's voices living rent-free in their heads. But you're different. Or at least, you're about to be. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't motivation. It isn't positivity. It isn't the comfortable lie they sell on every other channel. This is strategy. Cold, calculated, ruthless in its clarity. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince for the weak. He wrote it for those willing to see the world as it actually is, not as they wish it to be. And the world is this. Power belongs to those who can disappear. Not run, not hide. Disappear, with intention. There is a version of you that nobody has met yet. A version so focused, so sharp, so quietly dangerous, that when you return, people won't just notice you. They'll fear the change in you. But first, you have to vanish. 30 days. No explanations, no announcements, no performance. Just you, and the silence that will rebuild you from the inside out. Are you ready for that? Part 2. Why disappearing is the ultimate power move. Weak men announce their plans. They post, they talk. They perform their ambition for an audience that doesn't care. And while they're busy seeking validation, the dangerous ones go quiet. Machiavelli understood something most men never will. Absence creates power. When you remove yourself from the noise, people start to wonder. And wonder is the beginning of respect. Think about every lion you've ever feared. It didn't roar constantly. It moved in silence. It struck without warning. That's what 30 days of disappearing does to you. It strips away the performance. It kills the version of you that needs approval to function. You stop being reactive. You become calculated. Every scroll you skip, every party you decline, every explanation you withhold, that's energy redirected inward. Compounding, building pressure like a storm that hasn't broken yet. People will question your absence. Let them. Their confusion is your currency. Because while they're speculating about where you went, you're in the dark, sharpening your mind into something they won't be able to handle. Disappearing isn't weakness. It's the first move of a strategist. Comment Silence's strategy below. Let the Dark Power community know you understand the move. Part 3. What happens to your mind in the silence? Here's what nobody tells you about silence. It's uncomfortable at first, deeply uncomfortable, because when you remove the noise, what's left is you. Raw, unfiltered, unmasked. And most people can't handle that. So they run back to the scroll, back to the feed, back to the endless stream of other people's lives, because facing their own is too painful. But if you stay in that silence, something shifts. Day 1, your mind is loud, chaotic, restless like a prisoner rattling the cage. Day 5, the noise starts to thin. You begin to hear your own thoughts clearly, maybe for the first time. Day 10, something cold and focused starts to emerge. A version of you that isn't driven by emotion, isn't chasing comfort, isn't performing for anyone. By day 30, that version has teeth. Machiavelli wrote that the wise man must adapt his character to the times, but adaptation requires awareness. And awareness only comes when you stop drowning in distraction. The silence isn't empty. It's a forge. Every day you sit in it, you're burning away weakness, burning away dependency, burning away the soft, distracted, approval-seeking version of yourself that was never going to build anything worth having. What replaces it is something quieter, darker, more deliberate. A mind that doesn't react, it responds. A mind that doesn't chase, it positions. A mind that doesn't beg for attention, it commands it. That's what 30 days in the silence produces. Not motivation, transformation. Part 4, the dark psychology of withdrawal. Let's talk about something they'll never teach you in school: the psychology of withdrawal. Not weakness, not isolation, strategic disappearance, and what it does to the people around you. When you're always available, always visible, always responding, you train people to take you for granted. You become background noise, predictable, replaceable. But the moment you go silent, the dynamic shifts. The human mind is wired to want what it cannot have. It's not a flaw, it's a feature. And the man who understands this doesn't fight it. He weaponizes it. When you disappear, people fill your absence with imagination. They start to wonder what you're doing, what you're building, what you know that they don't. Your silence becomes a mirror, and they project their own insecurities onto it. This is Machiavelli's quiet genius. He understood that perception is power, that mystery is influence, that the man who controls what others think about him holds more power than the man who explains himself constantly. Most men are an open book. Every emotion visible, every plan announced, every insecurity on display. The dangerous man is a closed door. You don't know what's behind it. You don't know how long it's been locked. You don't know what's been built in the darkness on the other side. And that uncertainty, that not knowing, it makes people careful around you, respectful, attentive. Withdrawal also does something profound internally. It breaks the addiction cycle, the dopamine loop that keeps you checking, scrolling, seeking micro hits of validation every few minutes. That loop gets severed, and when it breaks, something remarkable happens. You stop needing external fuel to feel capable. You stop requiring applause to take action. You stop waiting for permission to become who you were always meant to be. The withdrawal isn't punishment. It's detoxification. You're purging the psychological poison that modern life has been feeding you daily, disguised as connection, disguised as entertainment, disguised as relevance. Strip it away, all of it. What remains is the core. And the core, when properly forged, is untouchable. Part 5. The Machiavellian Blueprint. How to use the 30 days. Disappearing without a plan is just hiding, and hiding is weakness dressed up as strategy. The man who vanishes with intention, that's a different creature entirely. That's not retreat. That's a calculated repositioning. And there is a blueprint for how to do it right. Listen carefully. The first 10 days, destroy. This is the hardest phase. Your old habits will fight back with everything they have. The urge to check your phone, the anxiety of being unseen, the voice that whispers you're falling behind, you're missing out, you're becoming irrelevant. That voice is your weakness speaking. And in these 10 days, you silence it by force. You cut the feed. You stop announcing yourself. You remove every input that isn't building you. No mindless scrolling, no empty conversations, no consuming content that leaves you softer than you started. You destroy the old architecture of your attention, brick by brick, ruthlessly, because you cannot build something powerful on a foundation of distraction. The second 10 days, build. Now the silence has room to work. You fill it with intention. You read, you study, you train your body like it owes you something. You revisit your goals, not the ones you posted about, the real ones, the ones you've been too distracted to pursue. Machiavelli was obsessed with preparation. He believed that fortune favors the man who has already prepared for every possible outcome. These 10 days are your preparation. You're loading the weapon, quietly, methodically. You study power. You study human behavior. You study the men who built empires and the men who lost them. And you extract every lesson with surgical precision. You write. You plan. You map the architecture of the life you're actually going to build, not perform, not announce, build. You work in silence, because results are loud enough on their own. The final 10 days, sharpen. This is where the transformation becomes visible, to you first, and eventually to everyone else. Your thinking has changed. You notice it in the quality of your decisions. You're slower to react, faster to recognize manipulation, harder to destabilize. Your presence has shifted. There's a stillness to you now that wasn't there before. A quiet confidence that doesn't need to announce itself. A coldness, not cruelty, but the calm of a man who has spent time alone with his own power and is no longer afraid of it. You sharpen your vision. You identify precisely who belongs in the life you're building and who has been quietly draining it. You become selective, deliberately, unapologetically selective. With your time, your energy, your attention, your loyalty, because a sharpened mind knows its own value. And a man who knows his value stops giving it away for free. These 30 days aren't a vacation. They're a military campaign, conducted entirely within the borders of your own mind. And when you emerge, you won't look the same. You won't sound the same. You won't be the same. Part 6. The enemies who will try to pull you back. Now let's talk about the part nobody warns you about. Because the moment you decide to disappear, the moment you make that silent commitment to rebuild yourself, the world will test you, not with obvious attacks, not with open resistance, with something far more dangerous. Comfort, familiarity, and the people who benefit from you staying exactly as you are. Machiavelli was ruthlessly clear on this point. He wrote that there is nothing more difficult to carry out, nor more doubtful of success, than to initiate a new order of things. Because the opposition comes from those who benefited from the old order. Read that again. Let it land. The people closest to you, some of them, have built their entire dynamic with you around your limitations, around your availability, around your smallness, not out of malice necessarily, but out of comfort, out of habit, out of the unconscious human tendency to keep things exactly as they are. And when you start to change, when you go quiet and focused and unavailable, they will feel it, and some of them will push back. It won't always look like sabotage. It rarely does. It will look like concern. Are you okay? You've been distant lately. It will look like guilt. You've changed. You're not the same person anymore. It will look like mockery. What are you doing, locking yourself away like some kind of monk? These are not innocent observations. These are anchors, thrown at your ankles by people who are uncomfortable with your evolution, because your evolution forces them to confront their own stagnation. Understand this with cold clarity. A man in transformation is a threat to everyone who has accepted defeat. Your discipline makes their laziness visible. Your silence makes their noise embarrassing. Your focus makes their distraction inexcusable. They don't hate you. They hate the mirror you've become. And Machiavelli's answer to this? It was never cruel. It was simply decisive. You don't argue. You don't explain. You don't justify your evolution to people who are invested in your stagnation. You smile. You nod. And you return to the work. Because here is the cold truth about human nature that dark psychology has always understood. People respect what they cannot control. People value what they cannot easily access. People are drawn, magnetically and involuntarily, to the man who remains unmoved by their opinions. Your silence in response to their noise is not rudeness, it is dominance. Your consistency in the face of their doubt is not stubbornness, it is unshakable identity. The man who can be talked out of his transformation never really committed to it. He was performing growth, not pursuing it. But you've already decided, which means every attempt to pull you back is just friction, and friction is what sharpens the blade. Let them pull. Let them question. Let them grow uncomfortable with the new version of you that's emerging. Their discomfort is confirmation that something real is happening. Their resistance is proof that you're moving in a direction worth moving in. And when you finally emerge from these 30 days, changed, sharpened, repositioned, the ones who tried to anchor you will be the first ones to ask what happened to you. And you'll smile, quietly, coldly, because you'll know exactly what happened. You chose yourself, completely, without apology. And that choice, that singular, silent, ruthless choice, is the beginning of every empire worth building. Part 7. The silence that rebuilds your identity. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. Who are you when nobody is watching? Not the version you perform on social media. Not the personality you wear around your friends. Not the role you play at work or in your relationships. Who are you in the dark, in the silence, when there is no audience and no applause and no validation coming from anywhere? Most men have never answered that question honestly, because most men have never sat long enough in the silence to find out. They've been running from that question their entire lives, filling every quiet moment with noise, every empty space with distraction, every uncomfortable feeling with consumption. Because deep down, they're afraid of what the silence might reveal. But here is what Machiavelli understood about identity, that modern psychology is only beginning to catch up to. Your identity is not what happens to you. It is what you decide, deliberately, repeatedly, under pressure. Identity is not discovered, it is forged. And the forge requires heat, it requires pressure, it requires the complete removal of everything soft and comfortable and borrowed from other people's expectations. Most men are living inside an identity that was never theirs to begin with. It was handed to them by their environment, by their upbringing, by the opinions of people who had no business shaping them, by a culture that profits from their insecurity and calls it self-expression. They wear it like a coat that never quite fit, never questioning whether they chose it or whether it was simply never removed. The 30 days of silence strips that coat away, day by day, layer by layer. First, the social identity falls away. The version of you that exists only in relation to other people, the friend, the follower, the entertainer, that dissolves when the audience disappears. Then the emotional identity starts to crack. The patterns you've mistaken for personality, the reactions you've confused for character, the fears you've been calling preferences. These aren't you, they're residue, psychological residue from years of unconscious living. And when they fall away, and they will fall away if you stay in the silence long enough, what emerges underneath is something far more interesting. Something quieter, harder, more precise. A self that doesn't need constant external confirmation to know its own worth. A self that can sit in a room with no applause, no validation, no audience, and still feel the quiet, unmistakable certainty of its own power. This is what Machiavelli called not virtue in the moral sense, but the raw internal force of a man who has mastered himself, the disciplined will, the unshakable composure, the ability to act decisively without being swept away by emotion or distraction or the noise of other people's opinions. Vert cannot be borrowed, cannot be performed, cannot be faked for long. It can only be built in private, in silence, through the daily discipline of choosing yourself over comfort. And here is the darkest truth of all. Most men will never do this work, not because they can't, but because it requires them to sit with themselves long enough to see what needs to change. And that kind of honesty is the rarest form of courage there is. It's easier to stay distracted, easier to stay comfortable, easier to keep performing the same tired identity and calling it authenticity. But you are not most men. You wouldn't be here if you were. You're the kind of man who watches a channel called Dark Power, which means somewhere inside you, you already sense that the version of you that exists right now is not the final version. You sense there is something more dangerous, more focused, more real waiting to be unlocked. The silence is the key. Not silence as emptiness, but silence as intention. As a deliberate withdrawal from everything that has been shaping you without your permission, so that you can finally begin shaping yourself. 30 days. No performance, no audience, no borrowed identity, just you, the silence, and the slow, irreversible emergence of a self so grounded, so focused, so internally powerful, that when you finally return to the world, people will sense the shift before you even speak. They won't be able to name it, but they'll feel it. That cold, quiet, unmistakable energy of a man who has been alone with his own power and is no longer afraid of it. That is the identity the silence builds. And once it's built, truly built, not performed, nothing and no one can take it from you. Part 8. The Return. How to enter the world ASA different man. Now we arrive at the moment most men get wrong. They do the work. They survive the silence. They endure the discomfort and the withdrawal and the slow, painful rebuilding of their identity from the inside out. And then they ruin it. They come back too fast, too loud, too eager to show the world what changed. They announce the transformation before it has fully hardened. They perform the new version of themselves before it has been tested. They hand their evolution back to the same audience that was invested in their stagnation, and they let that audience define it. Don't be that man. Machiavelli was precise about the moment of return. He understood that timing is not just important, it is everything. A prince who moves too early exposes his hand. A prince who moves too late loses his moment. But a prince who moves at exactly the right time, with exactly the right energy, reshapes the entire landscape around him. Your return from 30 days of silence is a strategic operation, not a celebration, not a reveal, not a performance. It is a repositioning, and it must be handled with the same cold precision that built it. First, return slowly. Resist every impulse to announce yourself. Resist the urge to flood back into every social space you vacated. Resist the temptation to explain where you've been, or what you've been doing, or how much you've changed. Let your presence speak before your words do. Walk back into rooms differently. Sit differently. Listen differently. The man who has spent 30 days in genuine silence carries a stillness that is immediately felt by everyone around him. You don't need to declare it. It radiates. People will notice. They always notice the man who has changed at a fundamental level, not because he told them, but because something in his energy is different. Quieter, more deliberate, less hungry for their reaction. That shift in energy is more powerful than any announcement you could make. Second, be selective about who gets access to the new you. This is critical. And this is where dark psychology becomes not just useful, but essential. Not everyone who was in your life before the 30 days deserves a place in your life after it. Some relationships existed because of the old version of you, because of your availability, your need for validation, your willingness to shrink yourself to maintain the comfort of others. That version is gone now, which means some of those relationships, built entirely on that version, are gone too. This isn't cruelty. This is curation. Machiavelli understood that a ruler's power is directly determined by the quality of the people around him. Weak advisors produce weak decisions. Small-minded company produces small-minded thinking. The people you allow into your inner circle shape the ceiling of what you can become. After 30 days of rebuilding yourself, you cannot afford to hand that rebuilt self back to people who will erode it. Be ruthlessly selective. Not arrogant, not dismissive, but deliberate. Give your time to those who challenge you. Give your energy to those who are building something real. Give your loyalty to those who earned it long before you disappeared, and proved it by respecting your absence instead of resenting it. Everyone else gets your politeness, your professionalism, your surface-level courtesy, but not your depth, not your vision, not the interior life you spent 30 days constructing in silence. Third, let your actions do the announcing. This is the Machiavellian principle that separates the truly powerful from those who merely perform power. The weak man tells you what he's become. The powerful man shows you, through the quality of his decisions, the discipline of his habits, the precision of his movements, and the unshakable calm with which he navigates pressure. You don't need to tell anyone you've changed. Your results will make the announcement. Your presence will make the announcement. The way you handle conflict without panic, without ego, without the desperate need to win every small battle, will make the announcement. Results are the only currency that commands lasting respect. Not words, not posts, not explanations. Results. And here is something that dark psychology understands with ruthless clarity. People are far more influenced by what they observe than by what they are told. Show them a man who has mastered his reactions, they will trust him instinctively. Show them a man who moves with quiet purpose, they will follow him without understanding why. Show them a man who needs nothing from them, and they will want to give him everything. This is the paradox of power that Machiavelli embedded throughout his work. The less you need, the more you attract. The less you chase, the more pursues you. The less you explain, the more people lean in to understand. Your return from 30 days of silence is the opening move of a new chapter. Play it with patience. Play it with precision. Play it with the cold, quiet confidence of a man who knows exactly what he has built and has absolutely no need to prove it to anyone. Because the man who has truly transformed doesn't seek recognition, he simply operates. And the world, slowly, inevitably, and without any announcement required, reorganizes itself around him.